Eskom has appointed an interim CEO. Calib Cassim, who is the CFO, is now the interim group Chief Executive Officer following the exit of Andre de Ruyter. Hilton Trollip is an independent consultant in energy research and is also a research fellow in the Global Risk Governance Program at the University of Cape Town. Hilton, thank you for your time. Your reaction to this news, is this a good or bad decision?
So I am not very familiar with Calib Cassim's history, but I had a quick listen, and I think as a caretaker, it's good to have. He's been at Eskom for 20 years. He's a CA, a chartered accountant. Eskom typically, the executive management team is usually shows very good results in terms of reporting. When I read their financial reports, which I do, when I look at the data reported on their websites, etc. So obviously there's some strong technical, at least, talent in that team, and Calib would be leading a lot of that. So as an interim, yes, very good. Whether he's clearly also an Eskom insider, and so he's had to weather many storms. And I've worked inside government when there are changes of party, et cetera, and these sort of professionals, the chartered accountants and the legal team, the HR people, they just keep their heads down and make the system work. And I suppose that's what's needed until they find a leader that can really deal with the political problems of dealing with the shareholder and the politics.
Hilton, I mean, obviously it helps, as you say, that he's a chartered accountant. He can keep an eye on the numbers. He's also got a master's degree in business leadership. One of the criticisms against Andre de Ruyter was perhaps operationally not necessarily being always perhaps the most inspiring leader. I mean, that's sort of what is emerging now from Eskom. People will say, though, that on the one hand, you've got to balance institutional memory. On the other, if he's been there for 20 years, it means he's watched a lot of the mess that brought us here unfold.
Yes, as I say, he's probably just had to keep his head down to keep his job, because I'm afraid that I watched the Annika Larsen interview, and also having sat at the parliamentary Eskom inquiry and read a lot of Zondo and listened to a lot of the testimony, I'm inclined to believe Andre de Ruyter's, at this stage, allegations of corruption, because the evidence is overwhelming, in my view. And we also have seen a glacially slow response after the Eskom inquiry to recommendations for criminal investigation. That was 2018, that reported. And we've seen 1 out of 45 of the recommended criminal investigation. So, yeah, Calib Cassim's kept his head down, kept out of trouble. That's good for stability, but yeah, I'm not looking there to resolve this problem with the allegations of corruption. And it's a lot more than allegations. We've also seen a few arrests and lots of reports, not just from Andre de Ruyter, but from all over the place. The
reaction of Mpho Makwana, the chair, who says they were aghast when they watched that interview and that Andre de Ruyter had embarrassed the utility. What was your thought on that?
Well, Mpho is a recent appointee. That board is recently appointed. As de Ruyter said in his interview, they fired all but one member of the previous board, and it was sort of clearly when there was a political crisis because of the level of load shedding and the upcoming elections, they decided that they were going to batten down the hatches, find a scapegoat, and try and get past those elections with blaming somebody else. And that started with Gwede Mantashe's allegation that Eskom was undermining the state. And it's been consistent since then. It's just been the government taking absolutely no responsibility. And I'm afraid 13 CEOs in 10 years, you can't blame the CEOs for that. And no company can run with 13 CEOs in 10 years. And that is a fact. That's no allegation.
A poisoned chalice is what he inherits by some people's estimation. Hilton Trollip, I appreciate you coming onto the show as quickly as you have. Hilton is an independent consultant in energy research.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.